You know, I was
happy to have you aboard here for the Really Big Barbecue Show.
keep on because
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
it's got a lot of power.
Come on, Greg. You're asking a guy whose team name is Pellet Envy. So obviously the answer you're going to get is no.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Fine, how you doing?
Charbono. It's all about the Charbono, dude. I just like being anywhere with Junior, Senior, and Diva.
Sounds like a whole other type of movie.
Wow. Yeah, really.
You could use it to fight off creeping marauders looking to take your steaks off your grills.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
But listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
How hot is Kelly Ripa in person?
Kelly Ripa is super hot. She's absolutely delicious.
Oh, yeah.
You could butter base her and pint Twinkies with that girl. She's delish.
Well, to put it briefly, let's just say I went to school.
There's no Robert Porker who's in charge of pig meat out there.
Is it not correct to properly classify you as Harry Sue's pit bitch?
I was his pit bitch for 6 weeks. I had no shame. I was. Keep it hot, keep it clean, keep it lubricated.
Succulent fish. What?
This right here is the premier media outlet.
So did you see this one? Tiger Woods has gone ahead and checked into sex rehab. Hey, Tiger, guess what? Everybody's addicted to sex.
I'm shaking like a dog shitting peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Who? Top men.
All right, welcome back to After Dark, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, man, did I get a little loose there? Apologize. Hey, just tuning in to the second hour because you're interested in getting a little Memphis and May lowdown, then you've come to the right place. We're going to be talking very shortly with the pitmaster of Yazoo's Delta Q. They happen to take the overall grand champion, world champion, galaxy champion at Memphis and May. So we're going to be talking to Melissa Cookston here in just 1 second. Thanks again, my guest from last hour, Ted Reeder. You can find him at tedreeder.com. He cooked the biggest burger ever on the face of the earth at 590 pounds in total. Check out his Facebook pages for cool pictures on that if you like to see lots of ground succulent beef. Also, Derek Riches joined me to give his recounts of Memphis and May last weekend as he was tooling around, especially in the shoulder division. And my callers had called in during the 4-segment free-for-all. Very good. All right, so let's race over to the hotline. Joining me now, the 2010 Memphis and May overall world champion. They also happen to snag the win in the whole hog portion of the contest as well. Pitmaster of Yazoo Delta Q, Melissa Cookston, is joining us here on the Barbecue Central Show. Melissa, welcome back to the Barbecue Central Show. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you, Greg?
I'm doing outstanding, and evidently I'm having some technical difficulties here as we talk, so let me fix that. I apologize. Certainly a huge weekend for you and the team of Yazoo Delta Q. You're getting lots of local media attention down where you are. So if it's all possible, let's go ahead and take a step back, kind of review how the weekend unfolded for you. First of all, you've had a few days outside of the event itself, walking away with the whole hog overall title in what has to be considered the most precious jewel that the MVN has to offer on its competition schedule during the course of the year. What are the emotions now, and what does it all mean for you and the team to win the World Championship in Memphis in May?
Well, I think we're still in shock, and I think we're still numb. You know, you go to the World Championship hoping, praying, really expecting nothing. You know, there were 254 teams from all over the world, and you know, to walk away with the biggest trophy in the world is it's quite an accomplishment, and we're very, very humbled by it. And you know, we've received a lot of support from other teams on lots of different circuits, so it's pretty nice.
258 teams, and I guess what's important to note, where if somebody's more familiar with some of the other sanctioning bodies, there's, of course, the Jack Daniels which is also widely considered to be the world championship of barbecue. But that's a whole different process. You have to win something specific in order to get into the drawing and hopes to get in. Where here with the MBN, I mean, you front that fee to get in, and you're in the mix. It's almost like an American Royal of the Memphis Barbecue Network of sorts.
Yeah, the Memphis in May is not affiliated with the Memphis Barbecue Network. It's its own entity, and it you do not have to win to qualify to get in, and it is very, very expensive to enter.
Okay, so you mentioned that, and certainly I was probably going to get into that at some point, just as far as how expensive those Memphis in May or the Memphis Barbecue Network type events are versus some of the other sanctioning bodies and events that are out there. But just for point of reference, how much does it cost for Yazoo's Delta Q? What's your complete out-of-pocket expense with entry fees and setups and the whole home decor thing, all that stuff? How much you guys put in for that weekend?
Yeah, I mean, we really didn't feed anybody, and I think last I totaled up was $8,200.
$8,200 for total expense. So, and one side, that's a lot of money to dump in for one weekend, to be sure. Probably almost 8 times, at least 8 times more expensive than any comparable other sanctioning body type of competition that you're going to get into. But when you walk away, you get $4,000 for whole hog winning that portion, and then I think it was $10,000 for winning overall. So you were able to offset those expenses a little bit this time around, but really not the case in a grand sense when you're doing it weekend out.
Well, I'm fortunate enough that the last couple of years I've been able to make money competing. So, there are contests that have bigger prizes and bigger purses than others. And there's always an opportunity to make your money back. So if you go into it, and be picky about where you go and take a good look at the purse and how much it costs you to compete, it's doable.
Do you try and stay as local as possible?
Oh, no. As a matter of fact, there was a contest 15 minutes from my house, and I chose to go to Georgia.
Is that a purse thought first and not staying local?
Exactly, yeah.
So when you see who's competing or who you're going to be going up against this past weekend, certainly, the tried and true teams of, the traditional Memphis in May, Memphis Barbecue Network definitely make it in. But this year there were a few other teams, perhaps more well-known for their KCBS ties. With that in mind, do you take a different mindset into this event, or are you going in expecting to come out on top? But I guess maybe a few sentences ago you said you're just kind of going in and a wing and a prayer. I mean, do you usually go into events like that, or do you usually go into events expecting to win?
Well, I mean, certainly at a contest that has 50 teams, I have a lot more confidence. With 254 teams, skill does not play a whole lot into the final factors because, there's a whole lot of luck that has to fall your way too. It takes a lot more than skill to win Memphis in May. You got to have the stars aligned that day for you.
Is it more luck to win, or is it more skill?
Well, I mean, you have to have the product to make it to the finals. I mean, you have to be on that day. But like I said, if you have 2 good teams that hit the same blind table, then both of you are out of the finals because you'll split the judges.
That would be bad.
That would be bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you look at a Memphis Barbecue Network, or when you look at the Memphis in May event itself, and I guess I just learned something new when I was talking with my previous guest, Derek Riches, you have to go in and you have to choose one category to choose. You're not cooking ribs and shoulder and whole hog.
That's correct.
So, I mean, you just feel that good about cooking whole hog versus the other 3? Or do you...
Certainly.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We're a whole hog team. We concentrated on whole hog for 2 straight years. That's all we did. But, if I was ever going to be the world champion, I would want to win it doing the most complicated category out there against the best teams out there. Because it means so much more to me knowing that, in the finals, there were some darn good teams. It wasn't a cakewalk where, some party teams lucked into the finals. That we went against some top pedigrees in barbecue world.
We're talking with Melissa Cookston. She's the pitmaster of Yazoo's Delta Q. They were just crowned 2010 Memphis in May overall world champions this past weekend. So in kind of keeping with that, and I wonder, certainly no slight intended here in this question, but you look at who was competing, and as you said, very well pedigreed teams in the whole hog, but you look at Big Bob Gibson's decided to go pork shoulder this time. Jack's Old South decided to go pork shoulder this time. Would it have potentially been even sweeter a victory to get over on those guys as well, or does it not matter who was in there?
You know, it really doesn't matter to me. I mean, no slight intended, you know, toward anybody, but, you know, Natural Born Grillers won ribs, Tuffy won shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of the three of us that was going to be crowned grand champion. And, you know, those are two very fine gentlemen of barbecue, and I'm scared of both of them.
So, I mean, would it be almost a slap in the face to have a guy that cooked ribs, no matter how good they are? Would it be a kind of a smack in the face where you're cooking whole hog and busting ass 24 hours or however long it takes to cook that huge hog to get beat out by a guy that does ribs? I mean, I can do ribs.
Yeah, no, because, you know, when a whole hog is done perfectly, ribs can't compete with it. It is so multifaceted, and true, you know, long-term judges that know the products can appreciate perfectly done loin. You know, when you have a little bitty strip of loin that is perfectly done, and you also have these huge hams that are so nice and tender, you can't compete with that with a rib, I don't think. You know?
You don't have to convince me. I would. I've never had a perfectly cooked whole hog in my life, so I would love to swing down and see what you guys have to offer. We're talking with Melissa Cookston of Yazoo Delta Q. As far as, you know, the whole hog is concerned, would there ever be a time, because of the effort and the mastery that it takes to cook that whole hog, do you think, and Derek kind of alluded to this last segment, that typically the teams that win overall are the teams that do whole hog? Do you think that any of that is taken into account by the judges, the amount of time and the effort and the skill it takes to do that versus the other two categories?
Well, you have to also think about the people that attempt to cook whole hog at Memphis in May can cook whole hogs. You know, the party teams or the sponsored corporate teams typically will cook shoulders or ribs. So it's very hard, you know, and you have the best teams usually typically cooking in whole hog. Not to mention, I mean, the shoulder category was one tough category this year because we had several teams switch over to shoulder. But, you know, we're real proud of what we do, and you know, it's hard to get in there with those whole hog guys, and, you know, and at the end of the day, you know, I'm much more proud of winning with a hog because it is more complicated. So,
just for point of reference for the people that don't know, how much is your whole hog? What kind of expense is that for you to take to a competition?
Let's see. Typically, I buy a special kind of hog. You know, typically I can get a whole hog from my local meat guy for $250, 160 pounds. But, you know, for the bigger contest, I buy a special breed of hog, and they're very expensive. I won't even tell you how much they cost.
Less than $1,000?
I'm embarrassed. I won't even say.
You're embarrassed. Oh my goodness.
I'm embarrassed.
All right, so it's well more than $250. Yazoo's Delta Q, obviously you guys having another great year so far. But, you know, when you look through the teams, were there two or three that you saw were back in there again this year that were really kind of concerning for you?
Yeah, you know, I'm always concerned. You know, I never go into. I mean, when you make the finals at Memphis in May, you know that's a huge accomplishment on its own. I knew the hog was there. I knew that it was perfect, and but still, you know, you just never know. You never know how it's going to unfold. And like I said, there were some high caliber teams in finals, so I really didn't know how it was going to shake out in the end.
So we had, obviously, the news had reported big, you know, the Shotwell smoker guys that were not only doling out some type of barbecue, but oxycodone and Xanax and pot with loaded guns and all that stuff. But, you know, aside from that, did Yazoo's Delta Q have anything to contend with that was kind of out of the ordinary for this cook, or did it kind of roll right along for you?
No, you know, it stormed, it was muddy, it was rainy and nasty, and that's all pretty much par for the course.
Typical day, right?
Well, you know, we tend to do better. the nastier it is, if it hails, we're a shoe-in. It follows me around. I've carried Georgia mud to Mississippi and then put Mississippi mud back in Georgia. So
an equal opportunity mutter.
Exactly.
That's right. We're talking with pitmaster of Yazoo's Delta Q, Melissa Cookston. If you want to find out more about them, you can visit their website, Yazoo's Delta Q, and that's just the letter Q at the end, yazoosdeltaq.com. Now, I guess to kind of refresh the listeners that aren't as familiar with the Memphis in May style judging, you do the blind judging like they do in some of the other categories, but you also have this on-site judging as well. I mean, I have to imagine if you've never done it before or it's something you might do once a year at most, it's got to be a nerve-wracking event because, being an old sales hack myself, it's very difficult for people to get up there and talk to people that they don't know and try to convince them as to why your stuff is the best, whether it be you're selling a knick-knack off the shelf or presenting your barbecue product. So how long does it take you to get your pitch down? And does it change from competition to competition?
Yeah, well, and part A of that question, it is intimidating, and I understand that. I really do. The new teams that I talk to, that I try to help, I tell them, look, here are the 4 or 5 points that you need to hit. But other than that, talk about your barbecue. I mean, who can't talk about their barbecue? Everybody can. I'm a girl, and I can do it. I know these guys can. My pitch changes, and let me tell you why. I don't like to be scripted because I want to talk about the product that I've cooked for the last 24 hours. I don't want to talk about stuff that I cooked 4 years ago when I made this spill up. So I roll with the flow, and I talk about what I cooked this weekend, and I want to tell you why it's this way. And, and I think it's easier for me, anyway, to not be scripted, to talk about it, because, if the judge interrupts you with a question or, a golf cart slams through your fence or whatever, you don't get thrown off because, you weren't at any certain point in your spill. So as long as you hit certain points, you're supposed to get a 10 in presentation. And, it's not hard. Once you get over the fact of, hey, just talk about your barbecue, that's all you have to do, then most of these guys calm down and do it very, very well.
So when you're in the middle of doing, whatever it is you're talking about that day, whatever feels right from the previous 24 hours, have there been times, because you are so very well versed at doing this portion, this on-site portion of judging, where you've seen a judge's eyes kind of start floating away or become a little bit glazed over, where you immediately know, what, I got to say something else to get his attention back in here, or I got to draw him back in, or do something kind of out of the ordinary so I don't kind of fall to the next guy?
The one I've never, I don't think in all the years I've been doing presentations, I don't think I've ever lost a judge. I don't allow them to get lost. I command their attention. And I try to tell new teams that, don't, keep talking. Don't leave a lot of airtime, where there's dead space. Look them straight in the eyes, and command that they listen to what you're saying. And I've never lost a judge yet.
We're talking with Melissa Cookston from Yazoo's Delta Q. They are the overall grand champions of the Memphis in May competition that just took place this past weekend. Now, Melissa, you also compete from time to time in the KCBS. The KCBS kind of had some type of present there over the weekend with that barbecue tour, and they had some grilling expositions and whatnot. Everybody welcome there? Some boundaries crossed at that point? What's your take on that?
Everybody's welcome. I mean, some of those guys we don't get to see but once every 3 or 4 years, and I, as far as I'm concerned, we're all one big barbecue family. We all have the addiction of barbecue. It doesn't matter if you're cooking lamb or brisket or whole hog. You're always welcome in my tent. And I think most of us feel that way. If any of those guys need anything, come see me. And if I've got 2, you can have one of them. And I think most of us feel that way. I mean, there's definitely no animosity toward other sanctioning bodies, or other guys because they cook another circuit besides the one we do. It's pretty welcoming, actually.
So, I mean, we've seen Memphis Barbecue Network got some exposure on the TLC Barbecue Pitmasters show last year. KCBS got a lot of exposure there simply because John Marcus, competes in KCBS. He was on the board at some point. So that was obviously going to be taking place where KCBS was getting a lot of exposure, but MBN did too. So, to that point, with the continued growth of the KCBS, and NBN isn't going anywhere. Obviously, there is a long storied tradition and a lot of respect as far as barbecue is concerned within that sanctioning body. But do you foresee a point where NBN might cease to exist or perhaps merge with another sanctioning body to get bigger and continue on in the future?
Yeah, I don't know. I, of course, I'm not privy to the ins and outs of the organization. I certainly hope that it doesn't go away because, that style of cooking is very unique. It's the only one that I'm aware of where, the judging is both on site and in blind the way it is. And, it's a lot of fun for me. And, I want to explain to people why I cook barbecue the way I do. I have fallen in love with brisket and Kansas City, so, I love that side of things too. I hope that we always have at least, that's the only two networks I've cooked on, but, I hope that we always have both to choose from.
Having cooked in both, this is going to be kind of an odd question, but you just kind of touched on it, so that's all right. You've cooked in both KCBS. You've done well in KCBS competitions, I might add, for somebody that has roots in the Memphis region of doing things competition-wise. What's harder to master, whole hog or brisket?
Oh, that is a tough question.
I mean, the obvious answer to me would be whole hog just because of sheer size and all the different temperatures you need to be working on, but brisket is its own little monster.
Brisket is a monster. Before I cooked my first Kansas City contest, I probably would have just thrown a brisket in the garbage and said, what am I going to, I can't work with this. But, as I cooked a few, I realized, I'm telling you, I'm addicted to burn ends. I can't even eat any other barbecue but burn ends. And, but the whole hog, it's its own beast. So, I have to say whole hog.
Yeah, I would have to imagine. I mean, you hear the one thing that you hear is how hard it is for brisket cooks to finally get that mastery of brisket. Although it seems, from all my experience of talking to a lot of these pit masters, a lot of people could use a lot of help on their chicken, from what I understand, and that's the easiest and the most inexpensive one to practice on. But perhaps a different rant for a different day here on this show. And we're talking with Melissa Cookston here, Yazoo's Delta Q pit master. Now, Melissa, obviously you're a lady. Does and we had talked previously in the last interview 5 or 6 weeks ago, whatever it was, about how you break in, and this is a male-dominated sport, and are you earning the respect of the male cooks? Now that you have this notch in the belt, and I know you always said that your husband is the one that kind of gets the high fives on the way up after you did all the work, but does this add a little bit more credibility to who you are, or do you not even think about that anymore, and this is a team effort, and so be it?
Yeah, I don't even think about it anymore. I could not do this without my husband, and he could not do it without me. I mean, we have always been a team. We will always be a team, and this is what we do, and it's kind of a yin and yang thing. I can pick up where he left off. He can pick up where I left off, and I can't imagine ever cooking without him. I mean, it's definitely a team effort. All
right, so let's go ahead and take that question. You put you on one team, you put your husband on another team. Who wins?
Oh, I'd whip his ass every day.
That's what I'm talking about. We're not pussyfooting around here on anything. Melissa, for the ladies that might be listening here tonight that are maybe a little apprehensive about getting outside, I'm not even talking about competition because obviously you're cooking in the backyard as well for family and friends and gatherings and whatnot. What advice do you have for the females out there, for the lady contingent, that might be a little bit apprehensive about getting into barbecue or even grilling to kind of overcome those fears and know that, it doesn't have to be the male's domain. You can kick it out there too.
Yeah, I mean, I was a tomboy growing up, and I've never, ever been afraid of trying anything. I didn't care if football was a guy's sport, and you just can't look at it that way. I mean, I'm not a woman who expects to have doors open for me, but, I like to wear skirts every now and then, but you just gotta, you gotta grab it by the horns and go for it, and don't be intimidated by it. This is for everybody. This is for the young, the old. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do. If you love cooking, get out there and do it.
That's right. You can cook 590-pound hamburgers like Ted Reeder.
Oh. I don't know if I could do that.
Well, you have to have a very cool grill manufacturer behind you in order to make that thing. So, again, we're talking with Melissa Cookston. She just won her and her team, Yazoo's Delta Q, just won the 2010 Memphis in May Overall World Championship. They also won the whole hog category during that portion of the competition as well. Melissa, where is Yazoo's going to be competing here over the next couple weeks?
We will be in Gainesville, Georgia, Memorial Day weekend. And my schedule has been blanked past that, so hopefully I'll know more in the next week or so.
Going to be eyeballing any KCBS competitions or anything like that?
Oh, certainly. We're getting the schedule out this week. As a matter of fact, I just dropped my trailer off to have some maintenance done on it, and this week we're going to be doing nothing but scheduling cooking schools and trying to figure out where we're going to drive all over the country to go compete. But we definitely want to include some Kansas City in that.
You know, cooking schools is a topic that's come up here recently, and you know, every once in a while I'll talk to some of the pit masters that put these classes on. You're another team that is doing them. They seem to really come into vogue maybe 2-3 years ago, where a lot of the top teams and any sanctioning body decided to go out and start giving these classes, whether it be for 75 or 100 people. Started off at $250, $300 a pop. Now they're ranging all the way up to $500, $750 for some of them. So what's the cost of your class, and what do you get at the Yazoo's Delta Q class of barbecue?
It's a 2-day class. It's basically just like Myron's with Jacksonville South. It's the Kansas City side as well as the Memphis side. We go over everything from stem to stern, or from squeal to heel, as I say. I mean, we don't hold anything back. And, you know, I'm getting kind of scared because last couple of contests I went to, a couple of my protégés have kicked my butt in a couple of categories. So.
I was going to say, I mean, when does it become a point of you're giving these classes and the faces that you're seeing are all of a sudden like, oh, hey, I see you pretty often, and now you're at my class, and I'm about to share with you everything that I do, and I probably wouldn't normally do that if we were, 10 to 10, and now they're walking up and getting calls, and you're the one sitting on your ass. Is it a little bittersweet, or is it all good?
It's really all good. You know, I've always been able to, I always want to help, especially new teams. You know, any barbecue knowledge that I have that I can share, I will. The learning curve for me was years. There was nobody teaching classes. Nobody would share anything with you. Nobody ever showed me how to build a blind box or how to, maintain a loin while, getting hams tender. Nobody ever showed me that. So there's a lot of trial and error and a lot of money. But, prime example, one of my guys that came to one of my rib classes last year came in 117th in ribs last year at Memphis in May, and he came in 6th this year.
Wow, quite a jump.
And he was looking at me through the fence going, can you believe that? I couldn't have done it without you. And that makes me proud, because I actually helped somebody, make that great a jump. So anything I can do to help, I always have.
If you had a blank check in your hands right now and you had to write
that would
out
be scary.
and you had to write out an amount to go take a barbecue class, whose class would you take, and you can only pick one?
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
I don't even know who all teaches classes.
Only the best of the best, of course.
Oh, no. I can't answer that.
Have you taken Myron Mixon's class?
I've never taken a class.
Any interest?
Yeah. I mean, Myron does things totally different than I do. I mean, he's totally yin and I'm totally yang. We don't do anything the same way. And I would love to go just, sit down and see what he does. I mean, he's not going to tell me. But I don't know if he'd let me come to one of his classes.
I was going to say, if you got a check in the mail one day and it was from Myron Mixon, would you be anxious to have him in your class and excited, or would that be kind of nerve-wracking?
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. I talked to him yesterday for a good 30 minutes.
So you wouldn't mind him being in your class?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I have no secrets. Nothing I do is secret. I think our whole key to success is being consistent. We cooked the same hog this week that we won with last week, and we can cook it again the next week and the next week, and it will be so similar and consistent that it's amazing.
Well, that's what I hear time and time again, regardless of sanctioning body. It's, I'll sit here, I'll tell you everything that I do. Of course, the biggest disconnect is from when we stop talking, and now I have to go out, whether it be in the competition or the backyard, and actually do exactly what you said I need to do. And that seems to be where the two worlds don't even meet up anymore.
Exactly.
We're talking with Melissa Cookston. She is the pitmaster of Yazoo's Delta Q. They were crowned the 2010 Memphis in May overall world champions. They also won the whole hog category over that weekend, too. Melissa, appreciate the insight. Again, congratulations on being crowned world champions at the Memphis in May competition, and you can bet we're going to be looking for you down the road.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Greg.
All right, thanks for coming on tonight. Appreciate it. There she is. World champion. World freaking champion, baby. Yeah. Yazoo's Delta Q. Their website, Yazoo's, that's Yazoo-S. Yazoo's Delta, you can spell that. Q, just the letter Q. Yazoo'sDeltaQ.com is the place to go to find out more about them. Again, thanks to Pete for the Firehouse Rub. Didn't give it away tonight, but we'll try again next week. And again, thanks to all of my guests that showed up for the first hour. I mean, what do you think about Melissa Cookston? I mean, as a host, I'm the host, by the way. As a host, I appreciate an interviewee who has command of thought. Here's why I think potentially some of the best interviews I could ever do are going to be Memphis Barbecue Network type people, because they are already experienced in talking. I'm not saying, these other people aren't used to talking to people, but they have judges that are coming on site, and they have a designated amount of time where they need to get through their spiel. So they need to have their stuff already in their brain as far as kind of things that they want to hit and talk about and get to without running off at their big fat yapper. And that really translates well into a good radio guest. Because sometimes, rule of the show, no names please, but sometimes you can have a guest on that perhaps falls passionately in love with what they're saying. And they don't like to take breaths either. And all of a sudden, I'm in a jam where I'm going to have to kind of crowbar my way back into the conversation and take control of my show. No names please. So to have somebody like Melissa on, and look, I'm not going to lie, it's also nice the fact that she's a lady in a male-dominated sport. She's kicking a lot of ass, especially in that perspective or that specific sanctioning body, that being the MBN. So it's nice to get that change of pace. It's nice to show that it's not all males out there that are winning, which is great. And as she said, it's all a team effort. So her husband and her work very well along with her other teammates. And it's proof positive. You do well, you cook that whole hog to perfection, and you're going to be walking the stage getting those world championships for Memphis in May. But to have somebody like Melissa who comes on the show, I'm able to ask a question, and I don't get the 15-minute answer where it's eating up all their segment time is so appreciated. So any potential guests out there that think I might be getting after them for a segment, take notes. Go back and listen. Succinct, giving information, but not falling in love with oneself like I have been doing for the last 5 minutes. Yes. All right. It's time to beat it. Thanks again to After Dark guest Melissa Cookston from Yazoo's Delta Q, Memphis in May world champion, whole hog champ as well. We're going to be looking for Tuffy Stone next week. He was the pork shoulder champ. He was a little tired tonight. Didn't have his game going. So, Tuffy, next week,
step your game up.
Come on, man. Be looking for you, so get ready. You got a week to get ready, mister. Also, thanks to Ted Reeder for talking about the 590-pound burger. 590-pound burger. Derek Riches from bbq.about.com recanting and recounting his great time at the Memphis in May competition as well from this past weekend. Also, thanks to the listeners. I appreciate each and every one of you. We'll see you back here next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another edition of the Barbecue Central Show. And until then, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.